Starting today's show with a teacher absolutely screaming down a high school kid simply because he did not have his mask fully on while eating his lunch. I think somebody needs to eat that teacher's lunch. I'm Dr. Duke, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Before we start, I want to remind our audience that we're not just about bringing you the problems in education, we also provide solutions. Check out our Judeo-Christian online classical school, FreedomProject Academy. Check that out right now. We are enrolling students for the fall, and classes are filling up quick. I encourage everyone to request a free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedomforschool.com, and take back control of your kids' education at Freedom Project Academy. Joined now by Vicki McKenna for our Culture Cast segment of the week. Vicki, glad to have you back again.
Great to be back.
What is it with Wisconsin? Wisconsin's kind of a nobody state. It's shaped like a mitten, for God's sake. It's somewhere near Calgary. It's not a very high-profile state, let's just say, but every time you and I talk weekly, there's some stupid middle school or some stupid high school in the news. Talk about what's going on at Poynette High School in Wisconsin.
Well, Poynette is only the latest in, I guess we can call them the mask wars, where you have teachers, I guess allied against students and parents on mask mandates. And so you've got a whole bunch of different, scuffles, political scuffles breaking out across Wisconsin. And Poynette, it escalated. A student who was having lunch in one of the classrooms was sitting in a corner and had pulled his mask down as he was eating his lunch. And that teed up a teacher to unleash some of the most brutal, personal, hateful bullying and abuse I think I've ever seen. I certainly never experienced anything like that or witnessed anything like that when I was in school. But what she did was try to break him down personally for not being compassionate enough, I guess, to lift his mask back up after he was done taking a bite of whatever it was.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. How does one eat with the mask over their face? So he pulled it down and kept eating, as opposed to pulling it down, taking a bite, putting it back. I'm not 100% clear on that, but that appears to be what his offense was. This student, I had a chance to talk with friends of this student. A generally popular kid, good kid. Decent GPA, not some kind of, delinquent or anything like that, who is nothing but nonstop trouble to teachers even. And there he was, I think you have a copy of the video. Let's take a listen, because I challenge anyone to explain or justify what this woman did to try to absolutely break this kid down emotionally if she could. Here's the clip.
I don't care if you're vaccinated, you little dink.
Okay.
I don't want to get sick and die.
Okay.
There's other people you can infect just because you're vaccinated. You know what? You're not a special person around here. You should hear about how everybody talks about you. You're a jerk.
Talk to me. I don't care how people
You're
talk
a
about
jerk.
me. Okay.
And you need to have respect for other people in your life.
I do.
You're not a big man on campus. Quit walking around here like you have a stick up your butt.
Yeah, what's amazing to me that one
That's
line
only half of it.
That's only half of it. And there's one line that sticks out at me. It's this line that you should hear how other people talk about you. That right there ought to be a fireable offense right there, because you're suggesting that is a conspiracy among other teachers, possibly administrators, or that worse, you're talking to other kids about this kid. This is a big no-no.
Right, and that's a good point. What was she referencing? You should hear about other people talk about other teachers, students. What does that mean? What is that meant to make that kid feel? It is meant to make that kid feel just, completely weak and without any kind of social support whatsoever. This is perfect. It's a perfect object lesson about what's going on with the obsessive virtue signaling over COVID. And that is to try to, anyone who would want to push back, and there are lots and lots of people want to push back. There are parents, 80% of parents disagree with mask mandates in the schools. 87% of kids disagree with mask mandates in the schools. No one's pushing back. Why? Because you just saw it. Here's a boy, and he wasn't really doing anything that offensive, right? He might have been.
He had a mask on.
It might have been in technical violation of the policy. But he's probably talked to all his friends who all think the mask mandate's nonsense. But what did she do? She cut him off from his social circle. She cut him off from support. She embarrassed him. She made anybody who wanted to be associated with him, some kind of pariah as well. She turned him into a pariah in that dress down, that brutal dress down, so that he didn't have anyone to lean on to support whatever cause it was. He was there to and maybe the cause was just being able to make a mistake and eat without pulling your mask up every time you take a bite.
Well,
but she left him without a lifeline when she cut him off personally like that.
That wickedness, that nastiness from that old witch, that was designed unless any other kid in that room dared to challenge the mask mandate. So this is what you're going to get.
She's a special needs teacher. She's a
wait. Is she teaches kids with special needs, or she's a special needs teacher? Right? It looks like more like the latter to me.
Right.
Before we move off.
She teaches kids with special needs. She was just monitoring a lunch, by the way. I don't want to intimate that child had special needs that was getting dressed down. He did not. But she was, yes, that's her job. She's a 27-year veteran teaching special needs children.
Getting paid a bundle of money, I bet. I'll bet you, as a 27-year high school teacher doing Spanish, she probably makes 20 grand more than I do as a university professor. Easy. Take a look at what the school's response was. The school district of Poinet is aware, well, good for you, of an incident that occurred today, May 11th, involving a teacher and a student at the Poinet High School. The district is initiating an investigation, and the teacher involved has been put on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. The district contacted the parents, and we are taking steps to provide appropriate support for the student involved. So at least they get it. They put her on paid vacation, basically, and they did say they're going to try to find some support for the kid. I'm not sure what that means.
What does that mean? Yeah. What does that mean? Like restorative justice, where you sit down with a teacher and she tells you why she thinks you're a jerk.
Yeah.
And then the kid says, "Well, I don't like that. It makes me feel terrible," because that's basically what they do when one student bullies another student, is that the bully gets to tell the victim
I'll bet
what a jerk they are.
I'll bet the support is that they sent somebody to the kid's house telling him how to properly wear a mask during lunch. I'll bet you that's what the support was. All right, back with Vicki McKenna and CultureCast. I mentioned before the break something going on in Minnesota, another one of those states that you wouldn't think would be in the crucible of academic reform, right? It's not Massachusetts, it's not California, not New York. They've decided in Rochester, the school district, Rochester, Minnesota, they've decided that they are going to adopt Black Lives sloganeering. They're going to have signs and bulletin boards all across the schools in the district saying Black Lives Matter, Brown Lives Matter, Native American Lives Matter. And they think by proclaiming this, quote unquote, government speech, that they cannot be challenged by this, nor can they be subject to lawsuits if they shut down kids who challenge those messages. Is this even constitutionally possible?
No. And I reached out to a constitutional attorney who called it absolute hogwash. The First Amendment applies to schools. Congress shall make no law abridging freedom of speech. The idea that you can declare that Black Lives Matter political propaganda is, quote, your official government speech, therefore you never have to tolerate any kind of dissent, it is absurd. It's laughable. It would be laughable, except it's going to take a lawsuit to shut this down. And who's going to file the lawsuit in Rochester, Minnesota? Now, at the very least in Wisconsin, we're going to sort of, goofing on the forgotten Midwest states. At least in Wisconsin, we have a pro bono, liberty-based law firm. I'm not sure what they have in Minnesota. I hope they have something similar, because it will take a lawsuit to actually say, remember that little thing called the First Amendment? It's in the Bill of Rights. It's the first thing on the list. Might want to check that out. But this shows you how far afield of actual history and actual education, educators and people who represent education have gone, that they don't even have to consider the very concept of the Constitution any longer. Because let's face it, Duke, we've talked about this before. The Constitution itself is a vestige of white supremacy and is nothing more than a structural anchor for systemic racism.
With adopting the messages that you're adopting as government speech, you're saying that these are the messages that we're communicating as the school district, and by doing that, we're not creating a forum for other types of speech.
So basically, by declaring certain phrases involving the Black Lives Matter movement as government speech, the board is protecting itself from legal action because it's allowing one type of speech, but not any speech in opposition to those phrases. But it's not just Black Lives Matter. In Rochester schools, speech concerning Brown Lives Matter, Indigenous Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate, as well as the Pride flag are now all declared official government speech.
It is not about telling students what to think or what they can and cannot say, but it does give our district and our staff the authority to speak out about these lives that matter.
So you got the male lawyer carefully trying to explain what they're doing, and then you get the clarification. We're not silencing speech, we're just not going to let you speak. We're not silencing speech. We're going to say what we want, but this protects us in case you want to challenge. But you're not going to be allowed to. Exactly.
Right. So, and here's the thing. What they want to do is declare Black Lives Matter ideology. And if you go to their website, you can see that their ideology is about destroying the concept of the Western rule of law, the nuclear family, upending the concept of private property and capitalism, promoting the end of heteronormativity and heterosexual relationships and family structures. So that's what Rochester, Minnesota wants to adopt as its policy. They think somehow that by declaring this government speech, they can stop any dissent. You know what I thought was really, truly remarkable is there's that reporter without any question whatsoever whether or not this is even constitutional and didn't bother to pick up the phone. And I'm sure that there are constitutional attorneys in Rochester, Minnesota. I know that there are in Wisconsin, and I was able to reach out to a few of them and say, is this something that is going to pass the smell test in the courts? Didn't even think to ask the question. That's how the reporters are so comfortable with the idea of obliterating the Bill of Rights. It didn't even occur to her to ask whether or not this was something that could be real.
Very final quick question for you. How is it that appropriating, commandeering the American public school system to unmake American values, to countermine the Constitution, to undo our way of life and our laws, how is that not insurrection?
It is insurrection, Duke. We don't call it that because the government's the one engaging in it. Just like we have tyranny. We have Soviet-style tyranny going on in this country, and because it's the government doing it, we pretend like it's okay. But yeah, this is an insurrection against the United States, but nobody wants to accept that their kid's teacher is part of an insurrection or part of a revolution. Nobody wants to accept that wonderful convenience of being able to drop your kid off at school while the dual earner household doesn't have to worry about who's going to watch the kids. The whole idea that you might be participating in the destruction of this country is a huge lift for a lot of people. They don't want to imagine that they have been complicit by paying zero attention at the infestation of this radical toxic poison in the kids' school system. And they would prefer their convenience than actually having to engage the now more difficult fight they're going to have to do battle on. So, it's insurrection, but you've got a whole bunch of people who love to stick their head in the sand because they've been the ones supporting it without perhaps intention, but they've been the one enabling it for 3 decades, 4 decades, 6 decades?
All right, for the past 2 years, we've been working on a series that shines a light on the great people that have contributed so much to mankind. Recently, we highlighted the English playwright and poet William Shakespeare. Today, we would like to unveil the latest addition to our Heroes of the West series as we look at the incredible life and accomplishments of Marie Curie. Enjoy.
Of all the female scientists to make contributions to our collective knowledge of the universe, none shone brighter or broke more barriers for women than Madame Marie Curie. Born Maria Skłodowska in 1867 in Warsaw, Poland, Curie grew up in a house of educators. Her father taught math and physics, while her mother ran a boarding school for girls until the birth of Maria. Since women were not allowed to attend universities at that time, Maria served instead as a governess after obtaining her basic education. She continued educating herself, however, focusing specifically on advancing her intense interest in scientific subjects. In 1891, she left Poland for Paris, France, to further her studies in physics, chemistry, and math. At the University of Paris, the Sorbonne, she obtained licentiateships in physics and mathematical sciences, achievements comparable to master's degrees in today's universities. After being denied an academic appointment at Krakow University in Poland because of her gender, Curie settled for a position at the Sorbonne in the School of Physics, eventually becoming head of the department. It was there she met her husband, Pierre, also a professor of physics. The two wed in 1895, Marie wearing a dark blue dress that also doubled as her laboratory clothing. The Curies had two daughters, Irene and Eve, before the tragic death of Pierre in 1906. In over a decade of marriage, the Curies achieved great scientific discoveries working as a team. In 1903, they shared the Nobel Prize in Physics with Henri Becquerel for their joint research on the radiation phenomenon. Marie and Pierre also discovered the elements radium and polonium. Marie chose the name polonium as a way of honoring her homeland of Poland. She eventually produced radium as a pure metal in 1910, garnering her a second Nobel Prize, this in the field of chemistry. In 1914, Curie went on to become director of the Curie Laboratory in the Radium Institute of the University of Paris. During World War I, Curie developed small X-ray units that were used to diagnose injuries near the battlefront. But despite such practical, real-world applications of her science, her passion remained laboratory research. Just 2 decades later, in Savoy, France, Curie died on July 4, 1934, at the age of 66. She died from aplastic anemia, which was caused by her exposure to radiation during her research. Curie's passion for science contributed to her demise, but the study of science continued in the Curie family as daughter Irene followed in her mother's footsteps, eventually winning a Nobel Prize in chemistry with her husband in 1935. Marie Curie was the first person to win 2 Nobel Prizes, is one of just 2 people to win in 2 different fields of study, and is one of just 4 to win multiple Nobels. Madame Curie understood well that perfection was not something to be obtained by mere mortals. Nevertheless, she worked tirelessly to advance the cause of science, observing that one never notices what has been done. One can only see what remains to be done.
And this has been Voltaire Week and the Dr. Duke Show. François-Marie Arouet, born in 1694, died in 1778, a creature, a child of the Enlightenment, known by his nom de plume, Voltaire, the great cultural satirist, the great observer of human nature. On other programs this week, I have referred to him as the European Mark Twain, only with a much bigger brain. And so let's take a look at our last set of quotes from Voltaire, because this world, this mockable, proto-socialist world we live in, deserves someone to mock the way Voltaire could mock. A couple of quotes from the genius. Quote, "Think for yourself, and let others enjoy the privilege of doing so too." Now, it's interesting, right? 1778, it's 11 years before the Constitution is ratified, and there you have this great French thinker making the obvious observation. One of the hallmarks of American democracy: think for yourself, and let others enjoy the privilege of doing so too. There's only one party in this country right now hell-bent on stopping you from enjoying your free speech, and it's the left. How about this quote? "Marriage is the only adventure open to the cowardly." Love it? Most men who want to go on adventures have to get on boats and sail the seas, or get on rockets and sail to foreign planets. But marriage is the only adventure, Voltaire says, that the coward seeks willfully. So in other words, cowardly people get married too. It's a wonderful satire on the institution. How about this? "One merit of poetry few persons will deny." One of the really benefits of poetry that few persons will deny: it says more and in fewer words than prose. And how about this one I like for today? Quote, "If you want good laws, burn those you have and make new ones." Very pragmatic. And one of my favorite Voltaire quotes: when I think about snowflakes in general today, no snowflake in an avalanche ever feels responsible. Let's think about that for a second. The avalanche smothers everything. The avalanche of Antifa, the avalanche of socialist revolution, it covers everything in the icy cold snow of change. But when you back off that for a second, what is an avalanche ultimately? It is tens of trillions of snowflakes, each doing the same thing. And once culture's been erased by this blanket of snow, no individual snowflake ever blames himself for the problem. That's a pretty insightful view on how radical rebellion occurs. Okay, before we go, we got a question from the Ask Dr. Duke segment from Matthew. Matthew asks kind of a long question. He says, if you were governor of a state and you had a choice to sign an education reform bill passed by the legislature with the following conditions, would you? And then Matthew goes on and lists 4 or 5 options. The problem, Matthew, is I don't know if this is all one bill you're asking me about, all 5 points are the same bill, or they're 5 individual circumstances. So it makes your question a little bit hard to answer, but I'll take them one by one. Your first proposal. Now again, the legislature has signed this. I can either sign it or veto it as the governor. Your first example. 1, the bill bans critical race theory from K-12, but mandates transgender girls be allowed to compete with women in sports. I will not sign that bill because they are 2 completely different issues. They are apples and oranges. They don't belong in the same piece of legislation. I am not going to, as much as I want to get rid of critical race theory, I'm not going to do it at the backs of young girls who want to play sports unencumbered by boys. Number 2, the bill bans Planned Parenthood-sponsored sex ed from K-5, but allows critical race theory in grades 9 to 12. No, those are the only 2 provisions in the bill, I am not signing that either for the same reason. It's important to get Planned Parenthood out of elementary school, but why is the cost of that subjecting our middle and high school kids to radical anti-American critical race theories? 2A, you have a subset. The bill bans critical race theory from K-5, but mandates Planned Parenthood. Same problem. Because here's the thing, Matthew, and I know you understand this. What's the difference between the way Planned Parenthood does its work and the way the critical race theory people do? They're the same thing. So when you ban critical race theory and then allow curriculum from Planned Parenthood, you're banning critical race theory and you're putting it back in. Your third scenario. The bill bans books by Howard Zinn from all history courses and also bans William Shakespeare from all English courses. Now, this is problematic, too, because the 2 don't have anything to do with each other. And by the way, go ahead and cancel Howard Zinn because no one's using him anymore. They're using much more up-to-date socialist propaganda. Howard Zinn was big in the 70s and 80s. The new textbook publishers are producing much more left-wing stuff. So you get rid of a 40-year-old textbook while the worst ones are still there. And I'm not banning Shakespeare. It doesn't make any sense. Number 4, the bill mandates both the 1619 Project and the 1776 Project be taught in history classes. All right, if you're going to allow 1619 and 1776, by definition, Matthew, they will be teaching critical race theory. So that doesn't make any sense either. Number 5, and finally, the bill provides a tax cut for single-income married couples with 2 or more children under the age of 12, but then provides 2 years of free community college. So what you're suggesting is that a bill comes to my desk that why just 2, by the way? Why does not one child count for this? The number 2 is arbitrary, and I'm sorry, I just don't see what the connection is between a single income married couple. Now here's another thing. A tax cut for a single income married couple. Well, what do you do about a single mother then? Does a single mother get this as well because she's not married? Or is it only for why does a single income married couple get this benefit, not a single mother? So there's just not enough information in this final example for me to give you a response. But there is what I would do if I were governor, and I would do it with glee. All right, just a quick reminder that the best way to access our content is to download our Freedom Project Media app. Simply search Freedom Project in your app store and make sure to allow notifications. It's all free. And if you enjoy this content, please join the Patriot Club. Your one-time $99 tax-deductible donation allows us to bring you these stories every single day. Simply visit patriotclub.us and we'll ship you our signature tumbler as a thank you. That's patriotclub.us. freedomproject.us. Now we want to take a moment to show some love to our Patriot Club members. Today, we'd like to give a shout out to Thomas from Powhatan, Virginia. Thanks for supporting us. And that's going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.